The stars were peaceful and had been for 300 years. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the great window of the Coalition Council chamber on Sanctuary Prime, watching ships from 47 different species drift past like colorful fish in an ocean. Each vessel was unique, reflecting the culture that built it. The Vryn ships looked like crystals. The Morthak freighters were round and fat. And the human ships? They looked boring, gray rectangles with engines attached. Nothing special. Nothing threatening. That was exactly how humans wanted it. Chen turned from the window as the council session began. He took his seat among the other ambassadors, a small human among giants, insectoids, and beings of pure energy. 3 centuries ago, when humans first reached the stars, they had been afraid of what they might find, afraid of what others might think of them. They had good reason to be afraid. Earth's history was soaked in blood, but the galaxy had welcomed them. The Galactic Coalition was a union built on trade, culture, and peace. Wars were ancient history for most species. They had evolved beyond violence, they said. They had found better ways. Humans had nodded and smiled and agreed. Yes, they too had evolved beyond violence. They showed the aliens their art, their music, their poetry. They became excellent traders and brilliant engineers. Human restaurants opened on alien worlds. Human doctors worked in coalition hospitals. Human children played with alien children in mixed schools. The war age of Earth became a curiosity, something mentioned in history classes. Surely those stories were exaggerated. No species could have fought so many wars and survived. The humans must be embellishing their past to seem more interesting. The galaxy believed the lie because they wanted to, because it was comfortable. The council recognizes Ambassador Krathix of the Zarn hegemony, the council leader announced. Chen felt his stomach tighten. The Zarn were one of the few militant species in coalition space. They had joined 50 years ago, after losing a war with 3 neighboring species. The coalition had offered them membership as an alternative to destruction. The Zarn had accepted, but they had never really fit in. Warlord Krathix stood, his forearms spreading wide. He was 9 feet tall, covered in armored scales, with teeth designed for tearing meat. His species had evolved as apex predators, and they had never forgotten it. The hegemony has an announcement, Krathix rumbled. The human colony of New Harvest lies in a strategically important region. It is inefficiently defended. The hegemony will assume protection duties for this world. The humans will pay tribute in agricultural goods. This is our right under the Strong Protector protocols. Chen was on his feet immediately. New Harvest is a sovereign human world with 2 billion citizens. We don't need or want Zarn protection. Then you need a coalition defense pact, Krathix smiled, showing too many teeth. Do you have one, human? The chamber went quiet. Every ambassador suddenly found something fascinating to look at on their data tablets. Chen felt cold. He knew the answer. Humanity had applied for mutual defense treaties with 17 different species over the past century. All had been declined. Too expensive, they said. Not strategically necessary, they said. Humans are so peaceful they don't need military protection, they said. The coalition does not permit aggression against member species, Chen said carefully. This is not aggression. This is protection. The humans have 30 days to agree to our terms. After that, we will be forced to take enforcement action. Krathix sat down, looking satisfied. Chen called for a vote. Surely the coalition would defend human sovereignty. They had to. The vote was 41 in favor of diplomatic resolution, 4 abstentions and 2 opposed. Not a single species voted to defend humanity with military force. Chen returned to his office and sent an encrypted message to Earth. The reply came back in less than an hour. Just 2 words. We understand. Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Sarah Reeves was hauling mining equipment to the colonies. Her ship, the Morning Star, was a beat-up freighter that had seen better days. She was in her cabin, reviewing cargo manifests when the alert came through. Priority message, military encryption. Her hands froze over the keyboard. Sarah hadn't seen a military encryption in 15 years, not since she retired from the Earth Defense Force. That organization was a joke now, everyone said. A symbolic force that ran parades and flew in formation for holidays. Who needed a real military when the galaxy was at peace? She opened the message. It was from Admiral Torres, her old commander. The message was brief. Stand by for recall orders. Protocol Fenrir may be activated. Monitor news from New Harvest. Sarah's blood ran cold. Protocol Fenrir. She had hoped she would never hear that name again. She switched on the news feeds and found them immediately. The Zarn had made their announcement. New Harvest had 30 days. The coalition had voted to do nothing. Someone knocked on her cabin door. Her first mate, a young man named David Chen, the ambassador's nephew, poked his head in.
Captain?
Did you see the news? I saw it. They're going to let the Zarn take New Harvest, aren't they? The coalition isn't going to help. Sarah looked at the young man. He was 25, born in space, educated on a coalition university world. He had never seen war. He thought history lessons about Earth's violent past were entertaining stories like myths or legends. David, go check on the cargo bay. Make sure everything is secured. But Captain, now please. When he left, Sarah pulled up a secure file on her computer. A file she had kept for 15 years but never opened. The file was labeled EDF Recall Protocol Eyes Only. She opened it and began to read. The next 30 days passed slowly. The Zarn moved ships into position near New Harvest but didn't attack. They were giving humanity time to surrender. How generous. Ambassador Chen continued to hold negotiations, but everyone knew they were going nowhere. The coalition offered to mediate. The Zarn smiled and said they were being perfectly reasonable. On Earth, something strange was happening. All outgoing communications stopped. The planet went dark. Other species noticed but assumed it was technical difficulties. Human colonies started running emergency drills. Human civilian ships began moving in odd patterns, concentrating near military-age populations. On New Harvest, 2 billion people waited. They built shelters. They downloaded survival guides. They did not panic. On day 30, the Zarn issued an ultimatum. Surrender now or face consequences. New Harvest responded with a single word. No. Warlord Krathix gave the order. Zarn warships opened fire on New Harvest's orbital stations. 40,000 people died in the first hour. The stations had been home to families, schools, gardens. Now they were debris. The galaxy watched in horror, and then they watched something else. Every human on every world stopped what they were doing. They looked up at the sky with the same expression. Not fear. Not panic rage. Captain Sarah Reeves received her official recall orders 30 seconds after the attack began. She looked at the message, then at her crew. David, plot a course for Earth, maximum speed. Captain, what's happening? Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone remembering an old skill they had hoped to forget. Someone just made the biggest mistake in galactic history, she said. They kicked the temple door. Now they're going to meet the war gods. In his office on Sanctuary Prime, Ambassador Chen composed a formal message to the Coalition Council. It invoked Article 7 of the Human Charter, the right to self-defense. Then he sent a second message to Earth. Just 3 words this time. Release the fleets. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had really been so peaceful for 300 years. They had been waiting for someone to give them a reason not to be. The news spread across human space like wildfire. New Harvest burned. 40,000 dead. The orbital stations were gone, turned to wreckage and corpses floating in the dark. The Zarn expected surrender. They expected begging. They expected the humans to cry for coalition protection that would never come. They did not expect silence. For 6 hours after the attack, not a single human government responded. No statements. No pleas for help. No angry speeches. Even Ambassador Chen Wei stopped answering messages. The coalition tried to contact Earth, tried to reach any human authority. Nothing. Earth was dark, silent as a tomb. On the Zarn flagship Crimson Fang, Warlord Krathix watched his tactical displays with satisfaction. His fleet of 200 warships surrounded New Harvest like a noose. The humans on the planet below were trapped. They would surrender within days, maybe hours. Warlord, we're detecting unusual activity on other human worlds, his sensor officer reported. What kind of activity? Ship movements. Large scale. Civilian vessels are grouping together at specific coordinates. It's very organized, Krathix laughed. They're evacuating. Running away. Typical prey behavior. Let them run. We'll claim their worlds when they're empty. But the ships weren't evacuating. They were gathering. Captain Sarah Reeves brought the Morning Star into Earth orbit 40 hours after the recall message. She had pushed her engines past safety limits to get here fast. What she saw when she arrived made her forget about engine damage. Earth was surrounded by ships. Thousands of them, Freighters, mining vessels, colony ships, passenger liners, research craft. Every human ship that could reach Earth had come home. They floated in organized formations, waiting, and among them, rising from the dark side of the planet, were ships that shouldn't exist. Sarah stared at her view screen. Those were warships, real warships. Massive, deadly, and absolutely beautiful. They were painted in dark gray with red stripes, bristling with weapons she recognized from old technical manuals. Manuals from before the Great Peace. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," David said quietly. His face was pale. "They're directing us to Luna Shipyard 7. "That shipyard was supposed to be a museum," Sarah whispered. "It was, ma'am." "Not anymore." Luna Shipyard 7 had been a tourist attraction for 100 years. Old, outdated, a relic from humanity's violent past. Now it blazed with light and activity. And sitting in its main dock was a ship that made Sarah's heart race, the UESS Relentless, a Valkyrie-class dreadnought, the last of her kind, except she wasn't the last anymore. Through the view screen, Sarah could see 3 more Valkyrie-class ships under construction, and beyond them dozens of smaller warships, all in various stages of completion. They were building them. David breathed. All these years they were building warships and calling them something else. A message came through. Admiral Torres himself. "Captain Reeves, report to Docking Bay 3. Your new command awaits." Sarah's hands shook as she piloted the Morning Star in. Her new command. After 15 years flying a cargo freighter, they wanted her back in a warship. The Relentless was even more impressive up close. She was 3 kilometers long, armored like a fortress, carrying enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Sarah had trained on the original Relentless back before it was decommissioned, before they built the museum around it. That had been a lie. All of it had been a lie. Admiral Torres met her in the docking bay. He was older, grayer, but his eyes were sharp as knives. "Welcome back, Captain. I know you have questions." 300 years, sir." "We've been building warships for 300 years? Not exactly. For the first 100 years, we really did disarm. We really did try to be peaceful. But then we noticed something. The coalition species didn't trust each other enough to defend each other. Every vote for military action failed. Every mutual defense treaty got blocked. Species were left to die because nobody wanted to fight. They walked through the Relentless together. The corridors hummed with power. Crew members rushed past, preparing the ship for launch. "We realized we were on our own," Torres continued. "So we adapted. Every cargo ship we built had reinforced hulls and hidden weapon mounts. Every mining laser could be a ship killer. Every colony had underground factories. We hid an entire military-industrial complex inside civilian infrastructure. The coalition never noticed. They didn't want to notice. We were peaceful humans. Harmless traitors. We made sure they saw what they expected to see." Torres stopped at a door marked Captain's Ready Room. "This is yours. We launch in 18 hours. Your orders are in the system." Sarah entered her new Ready Room. It was stark and functional, with a large view screen showing tactical displays. She pulled up her orders and read them carefully. Fleet composition: 240 warships. Destination: New Harvest. Mission: Liberation and Retaliation. There was more. Much more. Ship classes she didn't recognize. Weapons systems that seemed impossible. And at the bottom, a single line that made her blood run cold. Rules of engagement: Terran Protocol 7. No restrictions. She had heard of Protocol 7. It was the nightmare scenario. Totava. No holds barred. Across human space, the transformation continued. Mars' shipyards lit up. Titan forges roared to life. Europa's ice-covered facilities opened like flowers, revealing ship after ship after ship. The freighters and civilian craft weren't evacuating. They were reporting for conversion, landing on automated platforms that stripped away their civilian facades and added weapons, armor, and military-grade shields. A cargo hauler would dock, and 6 hours later a light cruiser would emerge. 300 years of careful preparation. 300 years of hiding and waiting and building, all activated by a single protocol, Protocol Fenrir, the Old Norse word for the great wolf that would break free from its chains at the end of the world. Humanity was breaking free. The Coalition Council held an emergency session. Ambassador Chen Wei finally appeared, but he looked different, harder. His usual diplomatic smile was gone. "Ambassador Chen, Earth has gone dark. Your fleets are mobilizing, Explain yourself, the council leader demanded. The explanation is simple, Chen said calmly. You abandoned us. Article 12 of the Coalition Charter requires members to defend each other from unprovoked aggression. You voted against action, so we invoke Article 7. Self-defense, we will handle this ourselves. You're mobilizing a war fleet. This is exactly the kind of militarization the Coalition stands against. Then you should have stood with us. Chen's voice was ice. The Zarn killed 40,000 civilians, men, women, children. They killed them because they knew you would do nothing. They were right. We offered diplomatic solutions. Your diplomacy is worthless. Chen slammed his hand on the desk. You want to know what humans really are? You're about to find out. For 300 years we played your game. We pretended to be what you wanted us to be. We hid our teeth and claws and smiled while you patronized us. The council chamber was dead silent. The Zarn kicked our door open. Chen continued softly. They're about to learn why it was locked from the inside. To protect them from us, not the other way around. On New Harvest, the people watched the sky. The Zarn fleet still surrounded them, waiting for surrender. But the people weren't afraid anymore. Messages were coming through on secret channels. Hold on, help is coming. The war gods are awake. In orbit around Earth, the UESS Relentless powered up its main drive. Around it, the First Fleet assembled. 240 warships ready for battle, ready for blood. Captain Sarah Reeves sat in her command chair and looked at her crew. They were young and old, veterans and rookies, all wearing the dark gray uniforms of the Earth Defense Force. Uniforms that hadn't been seen in public for 300 years. All ships report ready. Captain, her tactical officer said. Open a channel to the fleet. Channel open, ma'am. Sarah stood. This is Captain Reeves of the UESS Relentless. We are the First Fleet. We are humanity's answer to 300 years of being treated as weak, as harmless, as prey. The Zarn murdered our people. They thought we would accept it. They were wrong. She paused, looking at the view screen showing all the ships around her. We are the descendants of warriors. We come from a world that knew nothing but war for 10,000 years. We learned peace, but we never forgot war. Today we remember. Today we show the galaxy what sleeping war gods look like when they wake up. All ships jump to New Harvest. Maximum speed. No mercy. The First Fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind, and across the galaxy the Zarn waited, not knowing that their doom was already in motion. The First Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the New Harvest system. 240 human warships materialized in perfect formation, their sensors immediately scanning for targets. They found them easily. The Zarn fleet hung, in orbit around New Harvest like vultures circling wounded prey. 200 Zarn warships, each one a proven killer. The Zarn had conquered 17 species in their history. Their military doctrine was tested and refined through centuries of warfare. They were about to learn that quantity and experience meant nothing against an enemy that had perfected war itself. On the bridge of the Crimson Fang, alarm screamed, "Warlord! Multiple contacts at system edge. Unknown configuration. Count is 200 plus." Warlord Krathix studied his displays with interest rather than fear. So the humans found some ships. How quaint. Are they military vessels? Unknown, sir. Configuration doesn't match any known military design in Coalition records. They're just sitting there, not advancing. Krathix laughed. They're afraid. They came to look brave but can't bring themselves to fight. Pathetic. Open a channel. The view screen flickered. A human female appeared, wearing a dark gray uniform with red trim. She sat in a command chair that looked almost too big for her small frame, but her eyes were cold as space itself. I am Warlord Krathix of the Zarn hegemony. You are outmatched, human. Surrender your fleet and we will allow you to evacuate New Harvest peacefully. The human tilted her head slightly. I am Captain Sarah Reeves of the United Earth spaceship Relentless. This is your only chance. Withdraw from New Harvest immediately. Leave this system and never return. Krathix found this hilarious. Or what, human? You'll glare at us sternly? You're merchants and artists. You don't know war. Sarah's expression didn't change. You're right about one thing. We're not merchants pretending to be warriors. She leaned forward. We're warriors who were pretending to be merchants. There's a difference. You have 1 minute to begin your withdrawal. I tire of this. Krathix made a cutting gesture. Fire on their flagship, destroy it. The Crimson Fang's main weapons charged and fired. 3 plasma bolts, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a city, streaked across space toward the Relentless. They struck the Relentless's shields and disappeared. Not absorbed, not deflected. They simply ceased to exist. Their energy bled, away into dimensions that Zarn science didn't know existed. Krathix stared. What? Your minute is up, Sarah said. The channel closed. All ships, open fire on the human fleet, Krathix roared. The Zarn fleet unleashed hell. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, railguns, 200 warships firing everything they had. The space between the two fleets lit up like a star going supernova. The human shields held. Every ship. All of them. Then the humans returned fire. The Relentless's main gun spoke first. It wasn't a plasma cannon or a railgun. It was something the Zarn had never seen. A beam of pure white light that made space itself scream. It touched the Crimson Fang's shields and punched through them like they were paper. The beam carved through the ship's armored hull, through deck after deck and out the other side. The Crimson Fang broke in half. Warlord Krathix had just enough time to realize he had made a terrible mistake before his command center vaporized. The rest of the human fleet opened fire. Weapons that shouldn't exist tore through Zarn shields and armor. Missiles that could think for themselves hunted down targets with terrifying efficiency. Point defense systems that never missed turned Zarn fighters into debris clouds. But it wasn't just the weapons. It was how the humans used them. The Zarn fought like they always had, with aggression and courage. They charged forward, tried to close to boarding range, attempted every tactic that had won them victories for centuries. The humans fought like demons. They used formations that made no sense until it was too late. They fired from angles that shouldn't be possible. They anticipated every Zarn move before it happened, because humans had been studying war for 10,000 years. They had texts from Sun Tzu and Clausewitz. They had learned from Napoleon and Patton and 1,000 other generals whose names the galaxy had never heard. While other species had forgotten war, humans had turned it into an art form and then hidden that art behind a smile and a handshake. Captain Sarah Reeves watched her tactical display with cold satisfaction. Target their command ships first. I want their fleet coordination disrupted within 5 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Enemy flagship is destroyed, designating new priority targets. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 4 hours. The Zarn fought bravely. They died bravely. But bravery meant nothing against an enemy that had weaponized physics itself. The humans introduced concepts the galaxy had never considered. Cyber warfare that turned Zarn computers against their own crews. Psychological warfare that made Zarn commanders second-guess every decision. Kinetic kill vehicles that were just chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds. Too simple to jam or shoot down. Too fast to dodge. And when a Zarn cruiser tried to kamikaze into the Relentless, the human ship's AI defense grid shot it down, with such precision that it was reduced to atoms before it got within 10 kilometers. When it was over, 120 Zarn ships were destroyed. The remaining 80 were crippled, their weapons offline, their engines dead. The human fleet had suffered 0 casualties and minimal shield damage. 0 casualties. The galaxy watched the battle through news drones and trembled. On Sanctuary Prime, the Coalition Council gathered in emergency session. The footage played over and over. Zarn ships exploding. Human weapons that seemed to bend physics. An entire military fleet destroyed in hours by an enemy everyone thought was harmless. How? The council leader's voice shook. How did they hide this? A coalition intelligence officer stood to speak. Her name was Tavara, a Vryn whose species prided itself on information gathering. She looked sick. We ran a deep analysis of the last 300 years of human activity. Cross-referencing ship manifests, resource allocations, power consumption records, everything. She pulled up a holographic display. The humans never stopped preparing for war. They just hid it brilliantly. The display showed human cargo ships. These vessels we thought were simple freighters have reinforced hulls rated for military combat. Their cargo containers can be ejected as missile platforms. Every single human civilian ship can be converted to military use in less than 6 hours. Another image. Human mining colonies on asteroids. We thought they were extracting resources for trade. They were. But they were also building ship components in underground facilities we never detected. Every human colony has hidden factories. Their education system, Tavara continued. We thought their obsession with history was cultural. It wasn't. Every human child learns military tactics as part of their basic education. They call it strategy games and historical recreation. They're teaching warfare to kindergartners and calling it play. The council sat in horrified silence. There's more, Tavara said quietly. Their technology. We thought humans were good engineers. We had no idea how good. Those shields that stopped the Zarn weapons? They're based on principles we're still trying to understand. That white light weapon that cut through the Crimson Fang? It's a focused gravity beam. They've weaponized gravity. But our scientists said that was impossible. Human scientists clearly disagreed. Tavara closed the display. We've been thinking about this wrong. Humans didn't hide a military behind their civilian society. They built a civilian society that was a military. Every farmer knows how to operate anti-aircraft guns. Every teacher can read tactical displays. Every musician can field strip a rifle. They're all soldiers, every single one of them. They just forgot for 300 years. Until the Zarn reminded them, someone whispered. Back at New Harvest, the human fleet took up position around the planet. Rescue ships descended to help the wounded and repair the damaged stations. Medical teams worked around the clock. Captain Sarah Reeves contacted the Zarn survivors. The acting Zarn commander was a young officer who had never expected to take command. This is Captain Reeves. Your fleet is destroyed. Your warlord is dead. He will power down all remaining systems and await our boarding parties. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction. Do you understand? Yes. The Zarn officer's voice was hollow. I understand. But I must ask, why? Why hide such power? Why pretend to be weak? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Because we remember what we were. Before we reached the stars, we spent 10,000 years killing each other. We were very, very good at it. When we finally made peace, we swore never to go back to that. We hid our weapons not to fool you, but to restrain ourselves. And now? You kicked the door open. You killed our people and expected us to accept it because we seemed harmless. You thought peace made us weak. Sarah's voice hardened. Peace didn't make us weak. It made us choose to be gentle. There's a difference between cannot hurt you and will not hurt you. You forced us to show you which one we were. The Zarn officer shut off his weapons and surrendered. On the Relentless, Sarah stood and addressed her crew. Well done, everyone. But this is just the beginning. We've won one battle. The Zarn hegemony still exists. They still have armies and fleets, and now they know we're not what they thought. What are our orders, Captain? Her tactical officer asked. Sarah pulled up a star chart showing Zarn territory. Dozens of worlds. Hundreds of military installations. The entire Zarn war machine. The war lasted 60 days. For the Zarn hegemony, it felt like an eternity. For humanity, it was just long enough to remind them of what they had tried so hard to forget. The first fleet struck the Zarn colony of Kreshtar on day 3. The Zarn had fortified it heavily after news of the New Harvest defeat reached them. They had triple-layered shields, planetary defense guns, and orbital minefields. It should have taken months to crack. The humans did it in 6 hours. They used weapons that made the Zarn question reality itself. Missiles that appeared inside shield perimeters, having somehow teleported through solid barriers. Drones that replicated themselves using matter from destroyed Zarn ships, turning the enemy's own vessels into weapons against them. And worst of all, cyber attacks that were so sophisticated they seemed almost alive. The Zarn tried to shut down their computer systems to prevent hacking. The human AI simply wrote new code into their backup systems using quantum entanglement. The Zarn tried to fight without computers. The humans shot them apart with conventional weapons. There was no winning move. The second fleet hit Zarn mining operations in the Keter Belt on day 7. These weren't military targets. They were industrial facilities lightly defended. The Zarn expected the humans to destroy them. Instead, the humans captured them intact, boarded them with soldiers who moved like ghosts and fought like demons. The Zarn defenders were given a simple choice: surrender or die. Most chose surrender. Why are you capturing our facilities? A Zarn mine supervisor asked his human captor. Why not just destroy them? The human soldier, a woman named Martinez, checked her rifle's charge. Because after this war is over, your people will need jobs. They'll need a way to feed themselves. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to break your military so they never threaten anyone again. The supervisor stared. You're conquering us to help us? No, we're conquering you to teach you. There's a difference. The Third Fleet pushed deep into Zarn territory on day 12. They encountered the Zarn's Second Armada, 200 fresh warships that had been held in reserve. The Zarn commanders were confident. These ships had newer weapons, better shields. They had studied the human tactics from New Harvest. It didn't matter. The humans had already moved on to new tactics. They used relativistic kill vehicles now. Chunks of metal accelerated to 90% light speed. The Zarn couldn't detect them until it was too late. Couldn't shoot them down. Couldn't dodge them. Physics became a weapon, and physics always won. The Zarn's Second Armada lasted 3 hours. By day 20, the Zarn had lost half their military fleet. By day 30, they had lost 3/4. By day 40, they were desperately pulling back to defend Zarn Prime, their homeworld. Captain Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge of the Relentless and studied the tactical display. Zarn Prime hung before her like a poisoned fruit. The entire remaining Zarn military was there. Every ship, every gun, every soldier. They were going to make their last stand. Intel reports? She asked. Her intelligence officer pulled up data. Zarn Prime has population of 14 billion. Military forces concentrated in 3 orbital fortress complexes. Planetary shields at maximum. Ground-based weapons across every continent. They're ready to fight to the last. Casualties if we force a landing? Millions. Theirs and ours. Maybe tens of millions. Sarah was quiet. Around her, the combined human fleets gathered. 400 warships now, more arriving every day. They had the strength to crush Zarn Prime, to burn it from orbit, to make it a monument to the price of threatening humanity. But that wasn't why they came. Contact Ambassador Chen, Sarah said. Tell him we need him here for the next phase. Chen arrived 3 days later, his diplomatic shuttle escorted by human fighters. He met Sarah in her ready room. He looked tired. The past weeks had aged him. The coalition is terrified, he said without preamble. They're holding emergency sessions every day, debating whether humanity has become the new threat. What do you think? Sarah asked. I think we became what we had to become, but I also think we need to be careful about what comes next. Chen pulled up images on the display. These are the latest intel reports from Zarn Prime. They're not surrendering because they're afraid we'll exterminate them. They think dying in battle is better than whatever we'll do to them after. We've gone out of our way to show mercy to prisoners. They don't believe it. To them, we're demons, monsters. They've seen what our weapons can do. They think we're going to do to them what they've done to other species. Conquest, slavery, genocide. Sarah rubbed her temples. So what do? We give them a choice. A real one. But first, we have to make them understand they've truly lost. That continued fighting is pointless. You want me to demonstrate overwhelming force. I want you to demonstrate impossible force. Something so terrifying they'll understand that resistance is futile. Then we offer them a way out that doesn't involve their extinction. Sarah thought about it. Then she smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. I have an idea, but it's going to give the coalition nightmares. At this point, what's one more nightmare? 3 days later, the Zarn detected something massive entering their system. It wasn't a ship. It was too big. At first they thought it was an asteroid, but asteroids didn't move under their own power or emit energy signatures. Then they got a clear scan and their blood turned to ice. It was a weapons platform. A single structure, 30 kilometers long, bristling with enough firepower to sterilize a solar system. And it was pointing at their sun. On Zarn Prime, alarms screamed in every military installation. Scientists ran calculations and came back with numbers that couldn't be real. The energy readings from that platform were impossible. If it fired, if it actually used its main weapon, can they really kill our sun? The Zarn Chancellor stared at his science advisor. The readings suggest they could destabilize it, yes, Our sun would go supernova. Everything in this system would die within hours. The Chancellor sat down heavily. 14 billion people. His entire species lived in this system. They had colonies elsewhere, but 90% of all Zarn lived here, on their homeworld. They wouldn't. They can't. No species would. The humans built it, Chancellor, and they brought it here for a reason. A message came through. Captain Sarah Reeves appeared on every screen across Zarn Prime. People of the Zarn hegemony, I am Captain Reeves. That platform you detected is called Helios. It is capable of destroying your sun. Before you ask, yes, we would use it. Not because we want to, but because you need to understand that this war is over. You lost. She paused, letting that sink in. Your military fought bravely, but bravery cannot defeat physics. Courage cannot stop mathematics. You attacked us believing we were weak. You were wrong. We are not weak. We are restrained. There is a difference. Another pause. I am offering you a choice. Surrender now, completely, unconditionally, dismantle your military, accept coalition oversight, or we will destroy your sun and you will all die. The transmission ended. On Zarn Prime, panic spread, then rage, then slowly understanding. They had poked a sleeping monster. The monster was now showing them its full size, and it was giving them one chance to live. The Zarn Chancellor called an emergency council. The debate lasted 6 hours. Some wanted to fight to the end. Some wanted to surrender. Some just wanted to know why. Why would humanity build such a terrible weapon? Why show such mercy to prisoners but threaten to kill everyone? Why fight so hard just to offer peace? Ambassador Chen answered that question when he arrived on Zarn Prime under a flag of truce. You want to know who humans are? He said to the Zarn Council. We are the species that spent 10,000 years perfecting murder. We invented chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons. We created ways to kill that would horrify you. And then one day we looked at what we'd become and were disgusted. So you hid, the Chancellor said bitterly. No, we evolved. We chose to be better. We chose peace over war. We chose mercy over vengeance. But choosing to be gentle doesn't mean forgetting how to be violent. It means having the strength to choose. Then why the Sun Killer? Why threaten to kill billions? Chen's expression hardened. Because you need to understand. You called us weak. You murdered 40,000 civilians to prove it. You did it because you thought we couldn't respond. You were wrong. We can respond. We can respond with such overwhelming force that your entire species would cease to exist. We built that platform to prove it. So you'll use it? No, Chen said simply. We won't, because we're not the monsters you think we are. But we needed you to see that we could, to understand that when we offer peace, it's not from weakness. It's from strength. It's from choice. The Chancellor was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question everyone was thinking. If we surrender, what happens to us? You disarm. You accept coalition oversight. You pay reparations to New Harvest. And then we help you rebuild. We'll show you how to be strong without being cruel, how to be proud without being aggressive. We'll teach you what we learned. You would help us? After what we did? Yes, Chen said. Because that's what civilized species do. They remember mercy. They remember that today's enemy might be tomorrow's friend. And they understand that The Coalition Council chamber was silent as Ambassador Chen Wei entered. Every species had sent their representatives. Every eye followed the human as he walked to the center of the floor. He carried no data tablets, no notes. He didn't need them. The Council demands an explanation, Council Leader Vextor began. Humanity has violated 17 different weapons treaties. You possess technology that was banned after the Frontier Wars. You threatened to commit genocide. You have acted as judge, jury, and executioner without coalition approval. Yes, Chen said simply. We did all of those things. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Chen waited for them to quiet down. We did those things because you left us no choice. Article 12 of the Coalition Charter requires mutual defense. When the Zarn attacked New Harvest, we invoked that article. You voted it down. 41 species voted to do nothing while humans died. You abandoned us. We offered diplomatic solutions. You offered words, Chen cut him off. The Zarn offered violence. Words don't stop violence. Only greater violence stops violence. You all know this. Your species learned it in your own histories. But you forgot. You built a civilization on the assumption that everyone would choose peace. And that is wrong? Vextor demanded. No, that is naive. You built a house with no locks and wondered why thieves came. Chen pulled up a holographic display. We ran an analysis. In the past 300 years, 14 coalition species have been attacked by outside forces. Every single time, the coalition voted for diplomatic solutions. Every single time those solutions failed, 8 of those species no longer exist. The chamber went quiet. You didn't defend them, Chen continued. You held meetings while they died. You passed resolutions while their worlds burned. And then you held memorial services and pretended you'd done everything you could. You built a peace based on hope. Hope that everyone would be reasonable. Hope that no one would choose violence. What would you have us do? Maintain war fleets? Become militaristic like the species we despise? No, Chen said quietly. You should have been honest. You should have admitted that peace requires strength to defend it. Instead, you created a society where being strong was seen as barbaric, where preparing for war was treated as warmongering. You made weakness into a virtue. He looked around the chamber. Humanity learned differently. We learned that peace is not the absence of the ability to make war. Peace is the choice not to make war when you can. You can't choose peace if you're not capable of choosing war. And now you want to lecture us on morality? A Vrin ambassador stood. You threatened to kill 14 billion people. You built weapons that violate everything civilization stands for. Yes, we did. Chen's voice hardened. We built those weapons and then didn't use them. We had the power to commit genocide and chose not to. The Zarn surrendered because they understood we could destroy them, but would show mercy instead. That is strength. That is civilization. Not your pretend peace where everyone is safe only because no one threatens them. You could have destroyed us all, someone whispered. We still could, Chen said bluntly. The Helios platform is one of 7. We have weapons you haven't seen yet. Weapons we pray we never have to use. We've spent 300 years building them while you've spent 300 years forgetting that evil exists. Vextor stood slowly. So what do you want, Ambassador? What is humanity's demand? Chen was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled up a new document. Humanity formally withdraws from the coalition. Effective immediately. We will no longer be subject to your rules, your treaties, or your naive belief that talking is the same as acting. The chamber erupted again. Species shouted over each other. Some demanded humanity be sanctioned. Some looked relieved. Some looked terrified. However, Chen's voice cut through the noise. We propose a new arrangement. Humanity will become a protectorate force for coalition space. Independent, autonomous. Not bound by your voting procedures or your endless debates. What does that mean? Vextor asked carefully. It means when a coalition species is attacked, humanity will respond. Not after 3 weeks of debate. Not after committees study the issue. Immediately. We will defend coalition species from aggression, piracy, and violence. And in return, nothing. This is not a transaction. This is a responsibility. We have the strength to defend others, so we will. But we will do it on our terms. A small ambassador from a species called the Miri stood up. They were a peaceful, rabbit-like species who had nearly been wiped out by pirates 15 years ago. The coalition had eventually stopped the pirates, but not before millions of Miri died. Why? The Miri ambassador asked. Why would you protect us for nothing? What do you gain? Chen smiled sadly. Do you know what humans call the period before we reach the stars? The War Age. 10,000 years of killing each other. Every human alive today carries the genetic memory of that horror. We know what unchecked violence looks like. We know what it's like to be helpless while others suffer. We don't want anyone else to experience that. But you could rule us, someone said. With your weapons, you could conquer the entire coalition. We could, Chen agreed. And that's exactly why we won't. Power without restraint is tyranny. We've been tyrants before. We didn't like what it made us. So we'll be guardians instead. We'll be the ones who stand between civilization and chaos. Not because we have to. Because we choose to. The vote took 3 days. In the end, 32 species agreed to humanity's protectorate arrangement. 15 rejected it, preferring to remain independent. 5 species asked to join Earth's new alliance directly, wanting closer ties with humanity. The coalition itself survived, but changed. Humanity's departure in the Zarn War had shattered the illusion of peace through wishful thinking. Species started rebuilding their own defenses, not massive war fleets, but enough to defend themselves. The Coalition Council created a new rapid response protocol, so votes could happen faster when threats emerged. They learned, slowly, painfully, But they learned. Captain Sarah Reeves stood in the main hangar of the newly christened Terran Defense Station, a massive orbital facility that would serve as headquarters for humanity's Guardian fleet. Ships came and went constantly, patrols being organized, training exercises, diplomatic escorts for species that requested protection. Captain Reeves, a young officer, approached. "I have a question, ma'am." "Go ahead. Are we really going to do this forever? Be the galaxy's police force? We have our own worlds to protect, our own people to think about." Sarah looked out at the stars. "Humanity spent 10,000 years learning how to kill. We got very good at it. Then we spent 300 years trying to forget," the Zarn reminded us. "But here's the thing, we can't forget again. That knowledge is part of us now, so we have two choices. Use it for ourselves or use it for others. And we chose others. We chose to give our violent nature a purpose. To make our capacity for war into a shield instead of a sword. Does that make sense?" The young officer thought about it. "So we're like guardian dogs? Dangerous but protecting the flock. Something like that. Though I prefer to think of us as guardians who remember what the wolves look like because we used to be wolves ourselves." 10 years passed. In that decade, humanity intervened in 43 conflicts. Some were small, pirate raids, border disputes. Some were large, attempted invasions, civil wars. In every case, humanity responded fast and decisively, and in every case they showed mercy when victory was achieved. The galaxy learned to respect the human fleets that patrolled the space lanes. The dark gray ships with red stripes became symbols of protection. When they arrived, the weak felt safe and the aggressive retreated. The Zarn themselves rebuilt under human oversight. It was humiliating at first, but the humans were fair. They helped rebuild destroyed infrastructure. They showed Zarn engineers new technologies. They trained Zarn diplomats in negotiation instead of domination. 20 years after the war, a Zarn delegation requested to join the Terran Defense Concordat. They wanted to help protect the galaxy. To prove they had changed, humanity accepted them. Ambassador Chen Wei retired at age 70. His final act was to give a speech at the Coalition Council's memorial service for the 40,000 who died at New Harvest. "My people have a saying," he told the assembled species, "Si vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. For 300 years you thought that was barbaric. You thought civilization meant forgetting how to fight. You were wrong. Civilization is not the absence of violence, it's the mastery of violence. It's having the strength to destroy and choosing to protect instead. It's knowing you could conquer and choosing to defend. That is what humanity learned. That is what we hope to teach." He looked at the memorial wall with its 40,000 names. These people died because the galaxy forgot that evil exists. That some will always choose violence. They died so the rest of us could remember. Let's make sure we never forget again. Captain Sarah Reeves, now Grand Admiral of the Terran Defense Concordat, stood on the bridge of the new UESS Relentless II. She was 60 years old now, gray-haired and carrying the weight of 2 decades of Guardian duty. Her comm officer called out, "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Belkran sector. Unknown raiders attacking a civilian convoy. Distance? 6 hours at maximum speed."